welcome everybody. This is a very special episode of the Top Shelf, and if you've never been to the Top Shelf or never seen any of this before, I rarely have a plan and just fly by the seat of my pants towards whatever seems exciting. And today, I decided to hijack TPK Roleplay's channel for an earlier episode before their regularly scheduled programming later in the evening to chat with Spencer Campbell, or Gila RPGs, depending, about his new Kickstarter, Nova. This has been a good while in the making and a whole bunch of uh, hiccups along the way, if we want to include all the past stuff that this event was built out of the bones of. But I'm so excited for it, and we are currently like 30 hours into the campaign ish,
Yeah.
and we funded it in first 5 hours, which is
Yeah, first five.
superb. What were you anticipating as far as
Uh, I
funding?
I really didn't know what to expect because this was my highest starting goal for a campaign, I'm pretty sure. And the number of people that were following the campaign ahead of time on the Kickstarter page was a number I'd never seen before. So my brain just didn't know how to comprehend these numbers about what to expect. I think it's really funny that I funded in 5 hours, which is exactly how long it took me to fund Slayers, which was a drastically smaller stretch goal to start with. But it's kind of cool that my two big projects both funded in 5 hours.
Yeah, well, I
Which
mean,
was
it's
cool.
the first. I mean, if Slayers was your first big project and that one did super well at a short goal, at that point you got people behind you. People know your work and you make cool stuff. I've played. I mean, we've run 3 or 4 of your games on stream now, something like that,
Dang,
and
that's
like
awesome.
various things between seasons and uh, Slayers, and then Light originally, which Cole says soon to be 5 or 6. So we're gonna get the whole archive of you. Just gonna have a playlist of just Spencer stuff.
This
It'll
is
be good.
perfect because then I can always just like refer to your channel to be like, you want to see how it's played? TPK's got you covered.
Yeah, go hang out over there. They do
Right.
the things. Um, and then I think, hmm. Well, actually, let me preface this to the chat before I get into everything. If you have any questions throughout this, because I actually rarely stream interviews, the top shelf as far as things are streamed is dedicated towards the full episodes, which are playing games and then chatting about them later. Ideally, playing games with the author. Check out Light, that one was lots of fun. But in this case, since we're doing an interview, if you have any questions for Spencer or for myself to ask Spencer, probably not about myself. I'm not that interesting, but uh, throw them down in the chat, and I will do my best to keep track of them and make sure that we can broach them in some way or another. But I think the important thing to talk about first is Lumen, because this is so Nova, the new Kickstarter that funded, is built off of Lumen.
Mm.
What what started that? Like, what made the decision to dedicate a space to a mechanic system as opposed to just making a game?
So yeah, so Lumen is a long an ongoing evolution of my game design that started with Light. Light is the first Lumen game, even though it wasn't called a Lumen game because it was just Light at the time. But the sort of the bones of Light evolved, and I wanted to write more love letter games to some of my favorite video games. I did that with Frame, and that was a whole thing that we can certainly talk about if we want. But basically, when Frame fell apart, I had the bones of something very cool that I wanted to use, and rather than just scrap the whole thing, I repurposed it. So I stripped away all of the paint, all of the flavor, and everything like that, and boiled it down to an SRD that I could use then to build a new game using that same structure in whatever setting I wanted. And then ultimately, then anybody could use that system for anything that they wanted. Because I got my start in design by doing hacks and supplements of existing things. I wasn't making new mechanics on my own when I was first doing design. So I wanted to make something that could be a toolkit for people who maybe have always wanted to try design, but were overwhelmed by it. Hopefully, the Lumen system was going to be something that would be seen as approachable and easily moddable or modifiable and hackable and all of that sort of stuff. So that's sort of where Lumen came from, as sort of a happy after effect of the whole frame disaster, and actually it turned out even better as a result.
Oh, it's spectacular. I mean, we played In Extremis on our last episode by Keegan, and that was fucking amazing. Built off the Lumen system. I am waiting with bated breath to eventually play Gunfucks because I'm such a fan of Borderlands stuff, and the Lumen system caters so well to the looter shooter genre. Um,
Gunfucks is so cool.
I,
Like Adira wrote that whole game in like 24 hours, or like most of the game in 24 hours, which is very on brand for her. She just like could just throw awesome ideas onto the page, and then it just evolved from there. It's such a cool game.
it's a beautiful place to segue. How long did it take you to get to the place that you're at now with Nova? Like, what was pre-Kickstarter like?
So pre-Kickstarter was the big dilemma was figuring out what the setting was going to be, because the concept of being these high-powered like robots or mechs or exosuits was could be applied to a whole bunch of different scenarios or settings or genres, and I was kind of going through the Rolodex in my head of settings that it might work with, and I was originally thinking of doing something like in a Magitech space, like almost Final Fantasy inspired. Um, but that's also a genre that admittedly I don't know very much about. So I realized that I probably shouldn't make a game about that genre since I'm not very well versed in it. So what ended up happening is that I was reminded of a setting that my best friend and I, Mike Riemann, he did the layout and art for Dust, the Slayer supplement.
Ah, so good.
It's really beautiful. So he and I came up with this setting for an RPG that ultimately never manifested 3 years ago. And I reached out to Mike and I said, "Hey, I think this setting might be kind of cool for this project. Do you mind if I take some ideas from it?" And so I've sort of stripped some of those elements of the sun exploding and have brought them into a world where Nova lives now. In terms of other like rules and everything, like most of it was already written. Like a lot of it is just kind of taking things and assumptions from Lumen and doing the fun part, which is coming up with the powers for all the classes and everything, because the core mechanics are already there with Lumen. I'm doing some slight tweaks, just like everybody that I've talked to who's doing a Lumen game. Like nobody's doing it straight, like out of the SRD. Everybody has decided to change something interesting. So I'm doing that as well. But so like a lot of the mechanical stuff was like mostly done ahead of time. But it was a matter of finding that flavor, that lore that was gonna work for the new game.
Hell yeah. Okay. So the sun exploded.
It's a shame.
Apparently, it is a shame. And to, I guess, a funnier point as an aside, because I'm looking out my window, it has genuinely been cloudy for 2 days in my neck of the woods. Haven't seen the sun in a bit, so thank you for that. What
Happy to help.
uh, Twitter has been a buzz if you have not been on there about the sun on the tabletop RPG space. But I'm I am a scatterbrained person, and I want to get back to a question that I was going to ask earlier. When it came to when you talk about like I used to make hacks for games, which is kind of what inspired the decision to make Lumen into a usable toolkit system. Uh, Corvid Court and Seasons were both that, were they not? Or at least in some
Yes.
regard.
Yeah, so they are Corvid Court was the first of the two that came out. They are resistance games, which is the system that is used for Spire, which then was sort of largely adapted but slightly changed to create Heart.
Hmm.
So I used the resistance toolbox and I stripped away a lot of things that are there's good tech in there, but it just didn't fit the kind of games that I play, which are like really rules light and very fast.
Yeah.
And so I made what I call resistance light. And so yeah, it's sort of a hacked, diluted. I won't say diluted. It's like a diet version of Resistance. Essentially, it gets to the stuff that I am most excited about that system. So yeah, those are examples of me getting into like the hack space.
Which is super cool because I've seen hacks, I guess. Like I have D&D hacks on my table that are fun, but that one was interesting when I started reading through it and it being like, yeah, this used to be a resistance system because our premiere episode was Heart. So when I started getting into looking at those, it was the first time I'd ever seen anybody hack a game, and I don't even want to call it diet resistance. It's just Honey, I Shrunk the Resistance. Like
Yeah.
it's really just miniaturized in a way that it didn't lose any of the quality or really change a whole lot about it, but it just made it easy to parse because the resistance system is dense objectively if you read through Spire and stuff.
Yeah, and Heart especially. Like I read Spire first and fell in love, and then I remember reading Heart and going, okay, this is taking me a little bit more
Yeah.
to like grasp than I expected it to,
That was
especially
a
since I was like so obsessed with the resistance system already.
that was a hard game to do as a premiere episode. It was a lot of fun, but I
Yeah.
probably shouldn't have thrown down for a game in which I say nobody gets to see the system until a week before, including myself.
Oh
Read and
boy.
go. And I'm like, oh shit, I got myself in way over my head. So I have since adjusted, and the resistance light stuff's great. Um, but Nova has come along spectacularly. You are now past the goal point, and past your one stretch goal point,
Mm.
which is interesting because I have seen Kickstarters who like start out with 5 stretch goals and then they continue to just boom forward, and all of a sudden they have 12 stretch goals because they're just making more to match the numbers.
Hmm.
Uh, Now, from Twitter, if I'm gathering, you're not doing that. You're keeping it with one and done, and now it's it, and you know exactly what we're getting.
Yeah, essentially. One of those things. So there's a few reasons for that. One is if you list out a bunch of stretch goals ahead of time in the campaign, then you're on the hook for doing them. Like once people see them, even if they haven't been reached yet, they've seen them, and so they expect you to like hit those stretch goals. So it's, in my opinion, better to reveal stretch goals later when you're really prepared for them than to lay out like I'm going to do 5 stretch goals, and then you're on the hook for doing 5 stretch goals. On top of that, with Slayers, I learned an incredibly valuable lesson about not allowing myself to get into the hype of like, oh, I gotta put out another stretch goal to get incentivize more people to back the game, because that ended up just sort of slowing down a lot of the process. You get into the sort of the, like content bloat situation where you end up like with way more stuff than you originally intended, and it causes delays. And for me, it like really fucked up my shipping costs for
Oof.
Slayers. So I learned an incredibly valuable lesson from that. And so with Nova, I realized, listen, the game is awesome as is, and I think if anything, what folks are going to want are a couple more sparks, a couple more of classes to play as. So, especially because Eddie York, who's been doing the art, has been just showing off this really cool stuff, and I want to see more of it. So I was like, well, I'd love to pay Eddie to do a little bit more art. But for the most part, then everything else is in the book that you need, and so this helps keep me accountable, make sure that the game comes out, there aren't delays, and also then it kind of leaves me open to, if we overfund, it allows me to more easily do things like pay raises and bonuses to the team rather than like throwing all of those stretch goals into more content. Now I can just increase rates for artists and layout and editing and everything like that because we have the funds and I haven't like devoted them to X, Y, and Z.
Hell yeah. No, that's super good to hear. There's lots of conversation about writers' rates, and I am proud to say that all of the
Yeah.
community that I have interviewed and have been a part of, that seems to be the through line with the folks that I've interviewed is we want to fix that and make sure that people are paid what they're worth. So good on you there. Um, I would also throw into the idea that I I personally approve of the decision. I didn't at first. I remember scrolling your campaign and being like, "Oh, but I want the stretch goals. I want to see all the cool stuff that's going to come out. Where is it?" But the more I thought about it, and once I saw your tweet that is like, "Hey, we're not gonna succumb to the Green Goblin. We're gonna keep going and just let it be what it is." I thought what this does too reinforces the idea of what you built the Lumen system for, which is we're only gonna have what, like 7 sparks in this, eight,
Yeah.
8 sparks. That means, yeah, there's room for you to make supplements in the future or do another season pass kind of thing, which actually turned out to be hella fun. But it also gives a lot of playroom for people to make their own sparks and things, because now it's not like, oh, well, that's going to be really similar to this because there's 20 of them in the book.
Right.
You know, it narrows down what is the core and then gives more free play space.
Yeah, so like I fully intend when Nova comes out to do a Nova Jam, because it was so fun doing it with Slayers and doing it with Light, just because inevitably the community is going to come up with like infinitely cooler ideas than I am on my own. And so rather than me just try to like gobble up and cover all the bases, people are going to make really cool stuff. And so I'm excited to just, I'll do my thing. I'll make my version of Nova, and then inevitably everyone else is going to make their version, and that is going to be the cool experience for me, is seeing what everybody else takes and adds to Nova.
I'll answer the 2 questions in the chat for you. Keegan, I'm not answering that. I feel like that's bait and I don't want to get attacked. Uh, Rhetoroc's infinite numbers of crows. It's just all of the crows. They're they're gonna end up in there. I
Yeah,
know
you
it.
gotta have crows. That's the one legal law of Lumen games, is that you have to have a crow in there somehow, some way. It's got to be in there.
True.
So
Nova counts, so throw them in.
yeah, they're in there. I mean, we've a lot of us in on Twitter and in Discord have been talking about how there's sort of some overlapping worlds or timelines with some of these games too, so that like one of the enemy factions from Light is kind of one of the enemy factions in Keegan's game, for example. So like there's some assumption then that those universes are in the same timeline or same dimension or something like that. And with the Light Strike that I'm coming out with, because we funded before the solar eclipse tomorrow, there's going to be like some possible allusions to how Light and Nova are linked up. And so the crows, I think, will be the thing that help create the cinematic Lumenverse, exactly like Colt said in chat.
I can't. I am so pleased as just a person out of anything right now that you said the cinematic Lumenverse as it was typed without. I knew you weren't looking at it because they showed up at the same time, and it was so beautiful for me to just look down at the chat, and all of a sudden it's there. So points to chat. Um, yeah, no, it's really cool because I remember playing, or when we played in Extremis, I'm like, the Corvus Dominion. Wait, that doesn't. Wait a minute. That was put in intentionally. Um, but no, it's all very very good. I do want to know about Eddie York though. How'd you find that guy? He's a blast on Twitter. He makes cool frickin' art. What is the process of sourcing such a gem?
That was wow. I got lucky with that. I did a just a kind of a public request for recommendations for people who do mech art. So people who are just known for doing mech art, and somebody recommended Eddie to me. I think Trinity Knot Studios, I believe that's the name of the account on Twitter. I believe they're the ones that recommended Eddie to me because they had worked with him on another project. I looked at his portfolio and found some examples of, if you've seen some of the like concept art, the silhouette art that I've posted that recently that Eddie does.
Yeah.
He did that for a game called, I think it was called, oh shit, I'm gonna forget, Art Wars, maybe Art Wars 3 or something like that. And I saw that and I realized, oh, okay, so Eddie can 100% nail the vibe that I'm going for here, especially looking at some of his other stuff. And It just happened to be one of those things where once I pitched the idea of doing mechs, he was 100% on board, because he doesn't get to paint as much sci-fi stuff as he likes. He largely gets commissioned to do sort of fantasy, but sci-fi is his secret passion. So when I said, "Hey, do you want to draw a bunch of robots for me?" He was like, "I absolutely want to draw a bunch of robots for you." And we've created this awesome bond and relationship. And it's what I like about working with Eddie is that it's not unidirectional. It's not me just saying like, okay, so here's the art brief, go draw this thing that I want you to draw. Like I give him ideas and then he sends me totally different ideas just to think about. And so it's much more cyclical the way that we work with one
That's cool.
another.
Yeah.
um, and I think that ultimately creates a much more cohesive design, both in the mechanics that I then ultimately make for the characters based off of like seeing this inspiring art, and then the art then reflecting the mechanics that I've been talking to him about. It's like an awesome partnership so far with Eddie in terms of all the art.
No, it's been super cool, and he's so supportive of the Kickstarter and everything. Like yesterday on Twitter, seeing him pop into all of
Mm,
the conversations that he did was lots of fun. He seems rad. I am curious because I was thinking about this earlier today, actually, when I was watching the pricing on the Kickstarter, probably almost as obsessively as you were, weirdly enough. I'm just like, I don't know if it's I'm excited for this one or it's just like I've played enough of your games at this point to just be personally invested in its success.
that's
But
what I'm looking for.
when you got Eddie on board,
Mm.
you had some of this art created before the Kickstarter came up, obviously. Did you pay for that out of pocket beforehand?
Yeah, so I had paid Eddie ahead of time for the Kickstarter banner, Pyre art, which was the first spark that we saw,
Mm-hmm.
and actually both of the sparks that we saw is Pyre and Scorch, and the cover, that really awesome black and red Nova
Yeah,
cover that's going to be the book
that
cover.
one's gonna be
I paid
good.
for all of that out of pocket ahead of time, because that's the reality of Kickstarters is that art sells. So you need to have a lot of that stuff, or at least some catching pieces ahead of time. And I basically I just take my itch sales. They all go into a separate bank account that is just purely like my design sales stuff, and that's then what I use to fund other things. So I have my own budget that is based off of my ability to sell my other games. That then fuels my next game. So um, that stuff got paid for ahead of time because I sold a bunch of things before that. It was fortuitous timing with things like Lumen coming out, and even though it was free, there were a lot of people who were very kind to buy it, and other things like that that helped fund that whole thing. Yes,
Yeah,
Keegan, separate bank account is clutch for that.
I was just gonna say the same thing actually. That's what stuck out to me to all of that because I mean, not only is that nice just from a I know how much I can spend on these, but also I feel like that gives you a personal gauge on how your growth is. If you're just continuing to cycle only these funds back into the system, you know where you're at, how much people are, willing to put forth, and that did that influence at all the pricing for Nova or something of the sort? Like how did or maybe I'll just broaden it. How did you determine the price point for the Kickstarter?
Yeah, so that was a real dilemma for me because I always have a hard time pricing my stuff. I always tend to um, undersell or underprice my stuff, um, which I realize is not good for me, but it's also not good in general for the industry. That sort of race to the bottom effect, where if everybody's pricing themselves cheap because they think that's what people want, then nobody looks good trying to raise their prices. So that came from some good discussions with people on Twitter and Discord about, okay, what would you pay for 60, 70 page book with this layout and this art? Because at that point I had some of Eddie's art and I had some layout work that Jam is doing for the book. And I said, this is the quality of stuff that you're going to get. Know that there's going to be like 70 pages of it. How much would you pay? And that helped me a lot because it helped me make the at the time, uncomfortable decision to price the paperback book at 25 and hardcover at 40, because past Spencer would have made them much cheaper, which would have been too close to like actual cost for them, instead of like, oh, I'm recovering my costs and paying my people as a result. So
Right.
this time around, this Kickstarter truly feels like it's the one where I have learned the most from my previous campaigns and like my experience as a designer for like a year and a half ish. And it feels like it's all finally starting to bear fruit, that I'm learning things and it's going well as a
Yeah, and
result.
you've had a little bit of all of that throughout your Kickstarter life. You've got successes, you got a brutal failure that was not your fault. Um, I'm curious, and I don't want to rehash things because it's in the past, and I don't care at all about it anymore. But I do want to know what you learned or what you took from that experience moving into this Kickstarter.
Well, I mean, what I learned with Frame is just sort of solidified what I had kind of known or assumed about a lot of things, is that fandoms are terrifying. Fandoms are, I mean, that's where you get the word fanatical. So, like, yeah, exactly what Keegan said. Like, I learned fuck gamers. Like, it was one of those
Amen to
things
that.
where if you ask me this question 48 hours after it, and then versus like 4 weeks later, it's a different experience, a different mindset for me. One of those things, I have learned to kind of I've sort of just let go of that whole thing. It was a disaster, and it sucked. It was shitty, and it was one of those things where I'm fine with it, because I was able to take it and make something much cooler out of it, because it drove me to make the Lumen system, which then I was able to give to other people. Because Lumen would not have been made had that not happened. I would have just kept Frame as its own thing, and then I don't know, maybe it would have become Lumen, but that wasn't ever the plan. So yes, exactly like Keegan said, Frame needed to die so that Nova could become what it became, to
It's
become
true.
better.
It is. I wholeheartedly agree to that because had like Lumen by itself spawned so many other cool things. Like Lumen allowed it to inspire other people as opposed to just being another cool work of yours, which
Mm.
probably still would have, let's be honest. Like I am still paper tinkering with a Corvid Court supplement, and we've seen, a whole bunch of other people making cool stuff for your games, but like Lumen feels like another, like if this Kickstarter is everything that you've learned up to this point and your culmination of your growth as a designer, Lumen should absolutely second that, because Lumen, and not even as like the quality of what Lumen is, which it's great, but I guess in the spirit of you're now a teacher.
Mm.
You're now putting yourself in a place, and you are like you created a super fucking cool thing that is putting yourself in a place where people are following that, and it's super inspiring. Um, so yeah, I mean, all the props to everything cool that came out of what it was. Uh, this one's still not without its obnoxious people. I go
Oh,
through the. Oh
the
yeah, I go.
person
I
who
mean, that was
bothered
one of them.
Eddie. Yeah.
What? Okay, I didn't actually see that one. What happened with that?
So basically, so Eddie's very excited because this is, I believe, the first time a game that he has been the artist for Kickstarter has actually gone to Kickstarter, or it's one of the first RPGs
Okay,
in which his art has gone to Kickstarter, and it's gone very well. And he just kind of tweeted about
understandably
how
excited. Yeah.
his excitement, and some person came in and was basically like, "Yeah, you're referring to Nova, right? I mean, like you set a low goal, so maybe it wasn't really realistic, and now you could use the gimmick of funded in X hours." And like this person is randomly doing like talking to Eddie about this, who's not running Nova. Like he's the artist who made the stuff, so he's
Right.
bothering Eddie, who has no executive control over any of this stuff. And it's just one of those things where inevitably somebody's going to find something. It's like super backer syndrome, right? Like somebody they're going to find something that they're not happy about. And of course, inevitably they also followed up that tweet with another one that said like, I've run multiple Kickstarters from small scale to large scale. So if you need any advice, just let me know.
I don't like it. I didn't even bother putting the effort into like trying to look up who that guy was. I did watch those tweets. I didn't realize that that was directed at Eddie. I thought that came at you, and I'm like, what a petty, weird, trivial thing. But now that's even worse because yeah, he didn't have any control over that.
Right.
That's
it was
obnoxious.
it was one of those things where I was like, because I was like, I'm just gonna let this wash over me. Like I'm just like, okay, just forget it, Spencer. Like whatever. And then I think I lasted like an hour, maybe two, before I was like, no, I gotta say something.
Ugh. Yeah, I was actually referring to like I was looking through the comments on the Kickstarter itself, and there are just a couple that are just like they're not I think overwhelmingly everything is positive, and even the kind of weird comments are just people being dumb. Like they're small things, but I was looking at them and I'm like, why are people like this? Like why can't Kickstarter just be a place where people write cool stuff on stuff they're excited about? I don't get it.
It's just the way. It's the
Yeah.
way of people.
Well, and now you're doing super cool big creator. I mean, you're still part of the smaller community, but like you're doing like next echelon creator stuff as far as the scope of what you're working on. So it's bound to happen. Like we put ourselves in that place, but uh, I'm baffled every time I turn on Twitter. I just look at it and I'm like, this is every time there's something going on that's
Why do I
just
keep coming to
stupid.
this site?
Yep, yep, it's the worst.
And yet we do.
I
Yeah, super backers are the worst.
I
Ty.
I do need a vocabulary definition for super backers and why that word makes it the worst because I'm unfamiliar actually.
It's one of those things. It's a badge that you get next to your name on Kickstarter after you have backed like a large amount of Kickstarter projects, and so inevitably, like the super backers are the people who have opinions about your campaign and are very vocal about them, and they get hung up on small details and all that sort of stuff. They're just the same people who will find nitpicky things that like can't let go. They feel like they have like, you should hear from me because I'm a super backer. I've backed many projects,
Which
so I
objectively
know what I'm
means
doing.
what? Absolutely nothing. Like the title of super
Right.
backer means you're just buying things before they come out. Like that's saying I'm an ultra target shopper. Like that's so dumb.
Right. But I think a lot of people kind of, for those who are the especially vocal super backers will be the ones that are like, they see it as, I'm a I'm like a smart investor. I invest in the right Kickstarters, and I know what is going to make your Kickstarter right. Let me tell you how to do this.
No, 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 no. You're talking my language, and I don't like it because if I have never told it to you before, like my 9 to 5, I am a stockbroker. So I don't want to talk about.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, that one slapped me a little too close to home. Oh man, because yeah, I fully relate to that one. Oh God. As I'm searching Kickstarter to make sure I'm not listed as a super backer after like the 35 things that I backed on during Zine Quest.
Once they take it back.
I'm gonna email him. I'm gonna make him take it back if it's on there. I don't want to see
I'm
it.
a super backer now. I can't undo it.
With great power comes great responsibility. Oh goodness. Well, I mean, oh man. What chat? If you have any questions, throw them down now because I'm starting to. I've run out of my double espresso, and I'm currently
Boy,
thinking of things.
the crash
But
is coming.
it's not even a crash. It's that little derailment of all of a sudden I just got like, oh, I was at work 20 minutes ago and doing this, is now like my train of thought was derailed and there are no survivors. Um, so okay, I do have a question actually. You said, oh, actually before that, talk to me about the hardcover thing.
Mm,
Where are we at with the hardcovers? What response did you get? Because Twitter says overwhelmingly positive
yeah.
in general, but what happened?
So there's now a permanent tier on the Kickstarter campaign that allows people to back at a hardcover level no matter what. So it's not just the first 100 people, which was the original plan. Because I had heard from a number of people who were like, "Oh, I'm bummed that I missed out on the hardcover. Wish I could have gotten one." And I just genuinely asked. I made a a Google form, a survey that was only sent out to the backers at that 100 level, and I said, "Hey, are you all okay with me just making the hardcover a thing that people can do, or do you really want it to stay limited?" And I kind of gave some options about it and some thoughts about it, and it was like 93% of people were like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, totally do it." So there were only a couple of people who I guess are going to be disappointed by the decision. But most people were saying like, I didn't back the hardcover because I wanted something limited or special. I did it because I want a hardcover version of the book, and other people, if they want it, should have one. So
Yeah.
what I want to do is I want to like I still want to do something for those first 100. I want to think of some way of giving them a shout out in some capacity, either like in the way that the backers are credited, or I write something for them. I haven't come up with that, or signing it. I don't know. People keep saying signing it. I don't know if people actually want their book signed or not. So I guess I'd have to ask. But
I mean, I'll take a signed copy. Like
sure.
I bought the hardcover. I was one of the people who responded last night when I saw it pop up. Because I was very much in that boat. I watched D36 just disappear, and I
Mm,
was like, oh, I wanted that hardcover so bad. Curse you, Keegan.
right.
But I mean, exclusivity is cool. I like the idea of exclusivity as a whole, but also I just like people being included. So I think it was I appreciate that decision just from a previous backer standpoint. I don't.
Yeah, and I didn't want to make the decision entirely on my own. I wanted to make sure that those folks who bought it under the assumption it was limited were going to be okay with it. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that I polled them, and I'm happy to see the response from everybody being so on board with it. It just it's much more. It's a cool vibe from the community for them to be like, oh yeah, everybody deserves cool shit if they want cool shit.
Yep.
So
I mean,
that's where it has landed. So yeah, there's a new tier up there. If you missed out on the first 100, you can change your tier, or if you're a new backer, you can get straight to the hardcover if that's something that you want.
dope. Cool, cool. Yeah. We've got two questions in chat.
Okay.
I feel like Cole is being sassy, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Since Nova was funded, and you haven't even had a chance to take a break yet, what's next?
Post Nova.
Yep.
So the thing that I want to do next after Nova, besides the Nova Jam, and there's a whole Nova supplement that I want to make that I'll get to. Actually, there's two that I want to make. One that I had on my own, and then Eddie hits me this morning with this cool ass adventure. Like he comes with
Ooh.
this amazing, cool idea, which I want to do. So we'll hopefully make something out of that eventually. Um, but the next thing that's not Nova is, I think, going to be the Corvid Court Aviary, which is going to
Ooh.
be a collection of Corvid Court supplements and classes and whatever. Like anybody who wants to write something for Corvid Court, it could be new classes, it could be lore, it could be like heist generation tools, whatever you want. I'm going to get a collection of people, and the premise is that the designer and the artist pair up. So like if you're gonna write something, you need to find your artist, or you can be both the designer and the artist. And so it's going to be this collection of Corvid Court fun, cool stuff that you can use to add to your game. And what I'm excited about is that I'm not writing. like any of it. I might write like the intro or an outro, or I might write like a small piece, but it's going to be more opportunity for other people to bring in their voices to Corvid Court, because it's like, that is one of my most popular games. I did not expect my strange little crow crime game to become so popular, but it did. And so I want more people to be able to make it. So that's sort of the next big project, is one of those collaborative things where I'm more in the role of I guess managing the project rather than actually being the creator myself. It's a whole bunch of creators, and then we'll just kind of split the money together.
Dope. Well, Western crime. If you need it, I would love to. But
You're writing it, and Sir Heck just put something out and posted
hey,
it in the Discord, and
that's
it is
fantastic.
so good. It's so good. So I
Oh,
want
I'm so
somebody.
happy for her. That's so good.
Got to get the art link up with that,
Mm-hmm.
so that it can, because the classes are so good. So I know that there's the potential and there's the interest out there for doing it. So I think that might be the next thing.
If I can pitch this, and I don't want to put the energy out there if it's never going to happen or it's not a thing. You're not obligated to, but I want a collector's copy hardcover of Light and all of its season stuff.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that's my back burner thing that I'm slowly tinkering with, is what I'm calling Light the Beacon edition. And it is everything all put together in one cohesive book, and like ordered properly, so that it's not like the modules are in a because the modules have been released in an order that doesn't make sense if you want to play the game. So
Oh yeah.
it says like, here's everything, I've now put it into an order that makes sense. I'm working on some layout design of my own, which I think is kind of cool. It's not amazing, but I think it's kind of cool, that I'll tinker with. And it gives me the opportunity to update some rule stuff from Light itself and a couple of other things. And so yeah, the core rules and all of the seasons are going to get combined together into a hardcover book called the Beacon Edition of Light.
Yes. Also, I think you accidentally sent me a second copy a little while back.
Oh.
Cause I bought your whole collection of like all the rest of your stuff when you were having a sale. I wanted all the hard copies. And I'm leafing through them and putting them all down, and I'm like, I don't remember buying Light again, but so now I have a second one that I'll pass out and like pass
Nice.
around to the players, which is super nice. It just came to mind. I thought it was funny.
Sweet.
Um, I don't even need to ask that to him. Yes, you are currently last HP hero looking at the man who is responsible for the sun blowing up.
Yep.
That's that guy.
You're welcome.
Or not welcome, depending on your perspective. But if you actually like the sun, then you're not in the right place. You got to get out of here. Um, oh, that's so cool that like if anybody knows birds, it's Sir Heck. So the fact that she wrote a
Right.
supplement makes me so happy. That's absolutely fantastic.
I was telling her too when she posted it, like, I learned something about these birds that were in the supplement. I was like, I
Mhm.
didn't know these things about these birds. And so like I both learned something, and it's a badass packet of uh classes to play in
Ah,
Corvid.
that's so
So
good. Yeah, if you've never been to the TPK Discord, Sir Heck has been responsible for naming and affiliating every like major recurring member of the TPK Discord into a different bird, and that's
nice.
that's been ongoing. So it's yeah, it knows birds back and forth, and is also just one of the most wonderful members of the whole
Mm.
community. So that I, I totally missed that somewhere, and now I got to go find it. Um, a similar question that compared to um, the one that I asked from Cole, where did it go? Is about the Lumen system and where
Mm.
you see the future of Lumen as a whole going. He says, I know there's a jam still going on and the Lux Collective is happening, but what's your goals after that? Also, what is the Lux Collective? I've seen both terms. I don't
Yeah.
understand the second one.
The Lux Collective is awesome. So it's not something that I'm in charge of. MV is in charge of that, and I think Keegan I don't know, Keegan, how much your role is in the Lux Collective. So the Lux Collective is it's a an ongoing event that is June through August, and think of it as like Zine Quest, but specifically for Lumen games that are being itch funded. So that requires maybe some definitions in case those are unfamiliar terms. So anybody who's making a Lumen game that wants to fund it, but without going to Kickstarter, there's a new phenomenon in the last few months called itch funding. Actually, it's a little bit older than that, but it's become much more popular in the last few months, which is basically you post your game on itch in like an earlier version, like usually like an ashcan version, and then you put it on sale for like -1%, so you can get that cool progress meter at the top, and you've got funding goals. And so like let's say at $100, once $100 have been made on selling this ashcan version, I'll get some art for it. I'll get a cover for it, and then at $200 I'll pay an editor to make the text good. And then at 300, $500 I'll pay somebody to do the layout. And so it's similar to crowdsourcing that we see with Kickstarter, but you get the money immediately because it is through itch, and the stakes are usually lower. It's not for projects that have like multiple people on the team or at a bigger budget. It's something that like you on your own could fund entirely and work on it entirely on your own. So the Lux Collective is basically an event that is trying to promote everybody who's making that, because like you said, there's a lot of people who are making Lumen games, and they want to get them out into the world and make them look nice and be paid for it. And so the Lux Collective, it's going to be a bunch of different things. Like I'm hoping to do some streams where we're going to play a whole bunch of Lumen games on stream and do some like cool like review swapping and stuff like that. We're still figuring out what it is, but it's June through August. So anybody who's wanted to make a Lumen game and actually get paid for it, this is a good opportunity to do so.
Super cool. Super, super cool. I might have to take a look because I've had a couple ideas. I did not realize that's what that was for. Hell yeah. Okay. Dope. So this whole episode has been just a vocabulary lesson. It's delightful.
Yeah.
No, it's good though, because like there is an aspect of these interviews too where I try to get something out of them conversationally with each of the designers that if you were to watch them in playlist form, like there's something in each of them that hopefully another designer or a budding designer or something could take away from them and learn little pieces from everybody else's experience. So I've seen good things about itch funding.
It's super, super cool. Keegan has a whole card website set up for that that they keep track of all the stuff, and has like a whole breakdown on how to do itch funding if you're interested in learning more about it. I don't have the link handy. I also don't know what the rules are for posting.
Yeah, we don't do link drops in the chat typically, but if you head over to the TPK Discord, we do have a link section there that I'm sure people would love to see. No, that's super cool. I think we're getting close to wrapping now. We're a little under an hour, but I'm feeling good about the interview. I think we've tapped the subject material. Unless there's anything you else want to say about it, about where it's going. Any comments about recent anything? Like I'm here for you, so.
I'm excited about it. I was tinkering with some, like one of the classes, one of the Sparks today, and talking with folks in Discord about it. So I'm just extremely appreciative of the community surrounding the game being so supportive, and I like involving them and engaging with them rather than just like doing it on my own in isolation. So I've had a lot of fun. And I think this has just kind of come about as the spirit of Lumen games, of like doing a lot of this building together with people. So I just wanted to like take a moment to thank everybody who's been so supportive, because I think it's the game is going to be cool because everybody has helped make it become so cool.
Yeah, you've got a really good fuel behind you as far as the community that I've seen on Twitter. Like it's honestly, it's fantastic how everybody is just a part of everybody else's support and kind of affirmation towards making new systems and doing cool things. So I really much I really much I very much I have been enjoying the TTRPG community as a whole lately. So thank you for making a whole bunch of super cool games. Check out all of his stuff. Go to GilaRPGs.com and buy more shit. And check out the Kickstarter because we're only 2 days in. We got like a lot of time left. My math
Still a
just
lot of
died. I think
time.
it's like 23 days left.
Yeah.
If we're not including today. So there's plenty of time to go take a look through everything and back. And now you can get the hardcover copy. So if you didn't, go bump that up because you hardcovers. Why not hardcovers?
I know.
Um,
And I was also I was saying on Twitter earlier that especially for folks who are outside of the U.S. because shipping can be expensive. If you've got a nearby retailer who buys books, like talk to them because I have a retail tier that will help you out so that you're not paying the shipping all on your own. You can get your local retailer to pick up copies for you.
super cool. I should go pitch that to a couple of the game stores around. I'm getting gravely disappointed at the lack of tabletop RPGs. I went into one of the biggest ones around here and I just about died inside because I was like, "Hey, do you have anything else that's not D&D?" And just like straight face, they looked at me like they were confused and they're like,
"What do you mean?"
"No, just D&D. That's the one that sells, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, I need to go. This makes me sad." But no, it's always a pleasure to have you on. We'll undoubtedly continue to do so in the future. We're gonna have to set up something for Nova here at some point. I'll keep you posted. I'm scheduling like the new like Top Shelf Phase 2, like the next 6 months worth of stuff here shortly. So there will be time for sure. And then yeah, if you want to plug anything as far as like where people can find you, I know you have a Discord as well. Anything you like, and then I'll wrap and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, the best place to find me online is on Twitter at Gila RPGs, because that has the link tree that then links you to all of my other stuff. So that's where you can find my the Discord. That's where you can find Twitch, where I haven't been doing it as much just because it's been chaotic, but I like to do design streams. That's where you can find obviously Nova and everything like that. So just find me on Twitter because that will ultimately lead you to everything else.
Very good. Yeah, I will second that for myself. I am Mads, your host for the Top Shelf. You can find me at JK Madigan on Twitter. Discord's funky. The more I see it, the more I hate Discord because I try to like Twitter message a different designer and be like, "Yeah, come join the Discord so we can get you in on playing a game." They're like, "I can't find your Discord name," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I gotta go look it up and figure out what horrible slew of additional characters they've tacked on." But yeah, follow my Twitter for anything Top Shelf, anything tabletop related. I retweet a lot of stuff, I post a lot of stuff, so it'll be fun. And then once again, go back Nova. It's super good. Like the art is so good. The system, like for perspective, the Lumen system is my absolute favorite combat system I have ever played. Like hands down, there's nothing more fun to me because it is so easy to jump into combat and make it narratively fun in vast wild ways that you couldn't hope to do with something like D&D because it's too numerically technical. And it breaks the narrative feel of like the kind of rush forward of combat, and Lumen makes that feeling very, very good. I think there are a couple reviews that you have on your Kickstarter that you put up that reflect that really well as well. But yeah, we'll go ahead and sign off. Before I do though, keep an eye on the TPK channel because in a couple of hours, Cole, good God, no, Cole, don't tell me. I actually have to do my job for once. Give me a moment. I'm the worst.
Cole did do those things. That was very fun, Cole. That was my first TPK experience too.
It's so good. Yeah, it was lots of fun. We are on the 9th currently, which puts us at the first episode, I believe. Or no, it's not the first episode, is it? It is the first episode of a new series for TPK called God King's Calling, which will be very interesting. So keep an eye on that. That'll be later tonight. We're looking at 7 p.m. Pacific on Twitch. Same channel, same place, different folks. I'm not usually here this early. And then I've got an episode coming up on Saturday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard, 8 p.m. Eastern. That is, for those counting, 3 different time zones because I don't know how to do time zones. But we're playing episode 2 of The Company, which is
Nice.
the first long-standing campaign that TPK has ever, or that not TPK, that the Top Shelf has ever done. And it's been, the first episode was an absolute blast. We had Logan Dean on playing just the worst corporate bastard, which was a delight. I got to, poor guy. I won't spoil anything, but he got pretty hammered by the end of it. And then
We're both in Chicago, and he said he would run it for me in July once things are like calmed down and safe. I can't wait
that
to
is
play
so
The Company
cool.
with him.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, no, it was a blast having him on, and we're getting on to the second episode of the Resident Evil themed Company campaign that I've been running. So
Nice.
Stick around for that. It'll be good. And then we will talk to y'all next time. Adios.